You're entering Corsi Nation.
This is Jerome Corsi. Thank you for joining us on CorsiNation.com. Today it is Thursday, July 10th, 2025. You can find me on X at CorsiJerome1 and on Substack, it's JeromeCorsiPhD.substack.com. We're doing always updates on CorsiNation.com, so continue to follow our website and also check God's Five Stones. That's Gods, no apostrophe. Spell out five, Fivestones is plural. Chris is showing you right now the homepage for CorsiNation.com, and we'll show you in a minute the homepage for GodsFiveStones.com. We are including a lot. That's the homepage for Corsi Nation. A lot of information. There's the voter integrity issue on God's Five Stones. Also, my Anti-Global Alliance book. Here is the website for God's Five Stones. We have a lot of information on the Peter Titkin, the president's attorney, is working with me on Andrew Paquette's having found algorithms in the state databases, voter databases, that allow the production of millions of duplicate voters. And it's really mathematically proved. This is going to be the basis of President Trump's executive order, which is being formulated now. I've already seen a 17-page draft of it that is going to put very tight rules and demand the states under a national security directive to abandon all current voter registration records and computers, to do it over again with voter ID, proof of citizenship, and everything done by paper. Now, the states are going to resist this and hate this, but Donald Trump, as commander-in-chief, has the power to do this. And the information that's been released on China penetrating the computers and affecting the election in 2020, that's been released by the Department of Justice, and Christopher Wray has been called into an investigation on this because that information was suppressed. But now Donald Trump is building the case. He's setting the stage for this executive order. And it's got to come now in order to get the state Board of Elections to have more legitimate voter rolls before we go into the 2026 midterm election. If the Democrats steal the midterm election, 2026, they're going to have 2 years of the impeachment drama and the resist Trump. And I think the MAGA movement demands that we continue this, not only through Trump's presidency, but hopefully with another Republican presidency, J.D. Vance possibly, to follow Trump. Okay, so we're going to expand God's Five Stones to do Act Blue. And by next week, I'll be really actively publishing on this. And the God's Five Stones is going to change to have 2 investigations going, one in voter integrity and one in Act Blue. The Act Blue is going to be an explosive investigation because it goes beyond just the stealing of identities to make contributions to Democratic political campaigns. Some people didn't even know it were making contributions under their Social Security number. Of course, they weren't doing it. The criminals were doing it to 2,000 different Democratic campaigns. And it was caught, and TD Bank has already paid a $3 billion fine on this. But that's only the tip of the iceberg. The real evil is going to be the Vatican and the Biden administration making a deal with Honduras to open up the border, bring in 300,000 unaccompanied minors that would be captured in sex trade, to allow China to do the fentanyl across the border, and the Sinaloa cartel in Mexico to bring in all the cocaine they wanted. And the Democratic Party, through the CIA, benefited from this. Money went into banks, and Democratic operatives in organizations like Act Blue itself were buying $1 million houses and getting $150 million loans. That's how they got the money out of the bank, and that's how they funded Antifa and Black Lives Matter. And when this gets made public, I think it's going to be one of the major scandals in American history, and we're going to be adapting to do this in the very near future. Okay, let's get into the news cycle today. And Chris, I'm going to want you to comment on some of this in a minute. But what we're seeing again is this Epstein case is not going away. And there's continuous discussion on this in the internet. I saw Tom Fitton, who did a very good appearance yesterday on Fox. Tom Pitten's a friend, of course, and he heads Judicial Watch. And Tom was saying that the most generous explanation of this is that there is information in these lists that Epstein kept of clients that would implicate top government officials in various countries that is being considered so sensitive it has to be suppressed. Now, that's a mistake. Okay, and so let's say we already know that Prince Andrew's in this thing from Great Britain. So, okay, so we get, King Charles. We're going to try to protect the British royalty as if Britain still had something to be protected. I mean, this royalty in Great Britain is about as disgusting as you can get, with its entire history with killing Princess Diana on. And I'm saying it, I don't care what everybody, we got to protect the British monarchy. The hell with it. British monarchy, Great Britain right now is dominated by Muslims, which this government has let into be. And the Muslims are now in positions of command and mayors of London and many other cities. They're not assimilating. They're destroying British culture. They are burning down churches, and they are causing rape in the streets. And the mainstream media won't cover it. Now, if we're protecting people like this, let's stop it. That list is going to have to be made public, or this is not going to go away. And I'm sorry, but if these are the reasons why we're now going through a reversal of course, and the MAGA is not going to be producing truth, it's going to be hiding truth again, there's no justification for that. And Trump is going to increasingly lose credibility when we have stories coming out like are coming out every day. So, the news story coming out, and it's pretty shocking, but what they're now finding, it'll keep coming out. I mean, if Trump administration thinks they can put a lid on this, they're wrong. Okay, so now the news stories are that if you take a look at various data coming out, Epstein's body was confirmed to have been in a upper level L tier room where he was killed, not on the lower level shown in the video. Okay, and there's Chris, we'll go to the article on Gateway Pundit. I'm going to give it to you right here, so you can put it up. I'll give it to you in the chat. To show this article. Here we go. You've got it now. What it shows is that Epstein, the whole location of where Epstein died and how he died, and here they're showing, the tier J and the tier L, the tier G, the different parts of the prison. And Epstein was housed in the M tier until after he was attacked in person. Then he was put in suicide watch in July. He's moved to the L tier. Okay, and that's the upper tier. He was found dead in his cell number 220 on August 10th. Okay, so they've got all the pictures here. They've got the corridors. They show you all the entire, because they watch the entire video here. Okay, and then the video ends up having a 1 minute cut on it. So, the internet is going to be erupting over this missing minute. Now we have evidence of where the body was really found and where Epstein really died. And this stuff is just undermines the credibility of Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, and Dan Bongino. And it's a cut that doesn't need to be experienced. Okay, so I'm tired of the story undermining the MAGA movement. Epstein was scum. He was involved, and clearly an intelligence agent, clearly working for the CIA and probably Mossad. I mean, how did this guy Epstein have a multi-million-dollar townhouse that he lived in New York City? Of course, you go in that townhouse, and we found a picture of Bill Clinton in a blue dress wearing high heels. Chris, if you can find that, show the Bill Clinton picture. I mean, if we got Bill Clinton in a dress and high heels and a massive painting in Epstein's living room, and he's a head of state, well, how many other heads of state are compromised in this investigation? And if Trump thinks he's going to try to protect these people and these lists are not going to surface, that's a bad calculation. And again, it's not same kind of calculation the first term that undermined Trump. Starts listening to people. Oh, you can't do this, Mr. President. Just take a look at that picture of Bill Clinton, the high heels with the dress, his red pumps. I mean, okay, whole posture. So he's now going cross-dressing. Okay, so we have now is Bill Clinton transgender? And why would he allow, and why would anyone want this picture? Is this the official Bill Clinton portrait that should be in the White House? I mean, the bizarre nature of the Clintons involved going back to Arkansas with the CIA and cocaine importation from Colombia. Bill Clinton did more cocaine. It should have 2 or 3 times killed him. And all this nonsense of the CIA's involvement and all of these dirty activities is again being hidden. So it's time that the heads of states were involved and they're on the list and somebody's trying to protect them, including Donald Trump, because he doesn't want to ruin our relations with Great Britain. We don't have any good relationships with Great Britain. They're not worth a damn. Great Britain was supplying long-range missiles to Ukraine. And so far, the truth is, let's get out really who's on this list and let the chips fall where they may. I mean, I'm not going to participate in the cover-up when I know damn well that what's involved in these lists, and just from putting the pieces together, okay, they put enough pieces together here, and it's not hard to figure out. Trump is being pressured to protect criminal heads of state, including Bill Clinton and probably Obama and a dozen others who were involved in pedophilia, which is the elite hobby. And again, if we go to CorsiNation.com, you'll see, if we scroll down, you've got both Mike McCormick's book, which shows the corruption of the Catholic Church, working with Joe Biden as vice president to open up Honduras to child sex trade. All right, now these things are not going to be swept away. These things are going to have to be dealt with. The American people are going to have to be adult enough to know the evil that we allowed to be in the top level of the government and the CIA doing blackmail routines. And if it does involve, the top figures and, King Charles is going to die and we don't want him to be identified as a pedophile. Well, if he was a pedophile, identify it as such. Okay, and if he dies in disgrace, well, they killed Diana. Okay, this whole rotten British royalty is an anachronism that's outlived its time. If these people have so much money and so much leisure, all they can do is pedophilia and drugs and bizarre headlines in the news being followed by, the paparazzi. I'm sick of this entire charade, and it may be time for monarchies to collapse all across the world. And it may be time for these oligarchs to be exposed in Ukraine. Okay, now that's the next story I want to go to. And after this one, Chris, I'd like you to come on. Let's have a discussion about it. But right now, Reuters is report. First of all, Donald Trump renewed sending arms to Zelensky. Bad idea. Send more cocaine to a cocaine addict so he cures himself. Okay, so that's going to get all stolen by the oligarchs. And Reuters is reporting that this Kellogg, Keith Kellogg, who has always been a warmonger, always viewed Putin as a bad guy. So he's now, what they say is, President Zelensky held a, quote, substantive discussion with Donald Trump's Ukraine envoy, Keith Kellogg, in Rome, shortly after Trump pledged to send more defensive missiles and weapons to Kiev. Okay, that's Keith Kellogg. Now, Keith Kellogg, I'll just go to hell, because all he wants to do is war. And he wants to portray Putin as the bad guy. So now he's in Trump's ear, and he's telling Trump, well, Putin's just happy talking you. He's not stopping the war. Okay, so Kellogg evidently got enough influence over Donald Trump that he turned back on the arms spigot. And he's now over there saying, let's support Zelensky. Yes, 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 more war. Well, this is a bad idea. And again, I'm concerned that Donald Trump is listening to the wrong people. What happens inevitably, people come around, they want influence, they want their agenda. They start arguing policy to Donald Trump as if they were disinterested. And let's find out how much money Keith Kellogg is making on the arms dealing. Let's find out what's going on here in the background. But, the fact is, this is only going to perpetuate the war. As long as you give Zelensky more weapons, he's going to keep using them because he's a cheap two-bit comic who played the role on Ukrainian television of the head of state. Now he thinks he is one, running around with these fatigues as if he's, military and he's fighting the battle. This guy hasn't been anywhere near a battle. He'll kill other people with Zelensky. So Zelensky's basically a walking dead man because as soon as the money stops, the money flow stops, the oligarchs who he supported in Ukraine are going to kill him. There's Kellogg with all of his, decorations and all the rest of it. Kellogg ought to go to hell right now. I'm so sick of Kellogg. Every time he shows up, we get more ramping up of the war in Ukraine. So get him parked. Tell him to retire. Because if you're going to kill more people, he's going to go to hell, and he's going to destroy any effort here to get the Ukraine war solved in reasonable time. Putin is just going to eventually just take over Kiev. Then what's Kellogg going to do? Say go to World War III? The nuclear weapons stop him? Is he going to go back to, being, the warmonger, the Curtis LeMay, want nuclear weapons against Russia because of the Cuban Missile Crisis? Well, John Kennedy had enough sense to tell Curtis LeMay to go to hell. Well, now we need to tell General Kellogg to go to hell. This is ridiculous, and it's warmongering, and it's got to stop. Okay, now, Chris, I want you to come on and comment about this much, then we'll go to Gaza.
Well, it wasn't long ago that President Trump said he wanted to resolve the crisis rather quickly. So, first before he got into office, but we all know that Joe Biden put a monkey wrench into that. But
we almost went to a nuclear war with Joe
Right.
Biden. He was sending long-range missiles, and the United States, we were sending them with our guidance and our troops into Russia, deep into Russia, and Russia changed its nuclear policy to say that if it was our troops and our weapons and our guidance systems, then we were at war with Russia, and it was no longer a proxy war. And if it continued, the threat continued with launching weapons into Russia, Putin was going to go to nuclear weapons. And that was a serious threat.
Right, and the week after, there was a week right after the president, or the incoming president, if you will, said, "I'm going to solve that before he even takes office." So Biden made sure that promise didn't happen. Now we're at a situation where the war may escalate even worse, and the administration really, again, we can't afford this anymore. We just can't afford to be funding these other nations and their wars. It's impossible at this point.
Well,
Are we gonna-
it's possible for Europe too to fund it. I mean, the
Right.
idea that that Great Britain, with all of its massive problems, and they're on the green energy nonsense, and so with the green energy nonsense, they're going bankrupt. And when the gets to be winter again, and the price of oil skyrockets, these countries are going to go into massive economic decline, and we're going to have the potential here of a global depression. Now, that's why I'm saying that this bill that was passed, that Trump did get the funding. Trump knows that we are on the last stages of debt creation, and something fundamental is going to have to be done on this in order to reverse course and get things here resolved. So we cannot go out and see Europe with its near bankruptcy situation that could not possibly support any real military action in Ukraine. And so therefore, we're at a point where this has got to come to an end. And the way to end it is stop funding. Chris, your comments.
Oh, and then we can't fund this war for economic reasons as well. We can't keep funding every other war. I know there were principles over the years where presidents have run on the idea, or minor party candidates have run on the idea of ending foreign aid. I suppose that may not be the perfect solution either. But again, war is costing too much. This after the COVID money was spent, it really is the money supply is the highest it's ever been. And that means the dollar is worth even less. This kind of thing keeps up. And look, Putin knows if he stays in the war, check this out. Putin is a part of BRICS. Putin knows he stays in the war. The U.S. keeps throwing money at it. They really have no choice but to print it up because of the situation that the Biden administration put us into beforehand with the illegal immigrants, the aid to that. The Democrats extended lockdowns, forced more money to be printed. we're in a situation where we could be as bankrupt as the old Soviet Union if we're not careful. Again, I mean, I might be using an extreme
Well,
to this point, but I believe Putin knows. He's
you
part of
can't.
the de-dollarization movement. This is part of the whole thing.
Well, the BRICS are going to be deep dollarization until we stabilize the dollar.
Hmm.
And right now, the dollar is not destabilized. It's destabilized. We have $37 trillion of national debt. And I'm saying Trump is going to do some fundamental things to change that, including creating a sovereign wealth fund and cryptocurrency and trying to take some of the Social Security and other obligations we have, which they call obligations that are non-discretionary in the budget. Chris, if you look at, and you'll find very quickly, if you look at the percentage of non-discretionary spending in the budget, it's gone from a very small percentage in the 1940s to maybe being 65 or 75% of the national budget right now. And so therefore, we've got a situation where it's unsustainable unless we take a crypto solution to remove a lot of these obligations from the federal government's balance sheet and then get the dollar stabilized by reintroducing concepts where it may become gold backed again. Chris?
Exactly. But at this point, what we're staring at right now is still working with the fiat currency.
Yeah, we
Until the
are.
transition's made, we're stuck. And I believe Putin knows that. And I
I mean, the
believe
dollar might as well be a cryptocurrency.
right,
It's got the full faith and credit of the United States government behind it, but we've been downgraded twice,
right.
including
And
now by Moody's.
the funny thing is, well, but now Trump is threatening BRICS with 10% tariffs at this point. Think about
Right.
it. If you're Vladimir Putin, you know that Ukraine's going to keep fighting. You might as well just you might as well just keep fighting the war, or just kind of symbolically inching towards a little more. You're just grabbing a little bit more land slowly, not quickly, but slowly. So the U.S. and the West keeps pouring money into this war. Oh,
Well,
and
it's a way
it's
to bankrupt it may
right.
bankrupt Europe and the United States if we continue funding an endless war.
Right. So the war is being fought now on a couple of fronts. If you really, if you want to look into it, like, that's my opinion. I'm not sure how far off I am. I'm sure you could tell me if I am, but
Well,
I do believe
you're on the
that.
right track. I mean,
Right.
the economics dictate that the war end, and the reality of the politics dictate that the war end, because you're not going to get Russia to return these two provinces in the east of Ukraine. The Russian speaking and have been attacked by the neo-Nazi brigades that Poroshenko, president prior to Zelensky, and Zelensky have sent in there to oppress the freedom fighters among those Russian-speaking Russian nationalists, and then to attack the Russian Orthodox Church is really shows the evil nature that what we're supporting on Ukraine. We're on the wrong side. This is again something American people don't realize, is that we've been the aggressors ever since the Democratic Party decided they're going to go to war with Russia. They started that as soon as the Russian government capitulated, the Berlin Wall fell down, and Russia renounced communism. So Hillary Clinton, the others decided, okay, now we've loved Russia since 1917 because it was communist. Now we hate it because it renounced communism. So the Democratic Party, which has morphed into a communist party, is now completely an anti-American treasonous party. And that's where we're faced with a reality. Chris, just show let's give the 800 number for Swiss America. I want people to continue to go to Swiss America. And I'm begging you to please get some of your money into gold, especially your retirement assets, your IRAs and your 401ks. With gold trading today at $3,319 an ounce and silver almost at $37 an ounce, you're going to see gold go to $4,000 an ounce. So you might as well get in on the rise in price right now. So the book is How the Coming Global Crash Will Create an Historic Gold Rush. And the toll-free number is 1-800-519-6268. 1-800-519-6268. Please take a look at this. Please get a copy of the book. Talk to Swiss America. Okay, Chris, let's shift gears again. And now, I basically want to talk about this investigation that's been opened up against Comey and Brennan. So again, it's part of the management of the news. When you got a bad story that's out there, you want to try to cover it up with a good story to divert the news cycle So, President Obama knew how to do this over and over and over again. But, like Rahm Emanuel said, never let a good crisis go to waste. Create a crisis, and then change the news cycle. So also, the last couple of days, the Department of Justice has made it clear that there's going to be a criminal investigation into John Brennan and Comey over the Russian collusion hoax. Now, this should be, the timing of this, though, is timed in order to dampen the energy that is going to the Epstein story. I'm trying to end that by saying, okay, let's really get to the bottom of what the government, why Trump doesn't want to release all the Epstein files. Okay, there's got to be a reason. I'm hypothesizing what I think is the reason. Now I'm also suggesting that while this investigation of Brennan and Comey needs to happen, its timing is aimed as a cover-up story to divert media attention from, wag the dog kind of was what Clinton used to say, wag the dog. In other words, when there's adverse news about Clinton, go bomb somebody. And then the adverse news about Clinton will be forgotten. So you just wag the tail of the dog so everybody quits paying attention to the dog. Okay, let's hear what Brennan says, because Brennan, of course, is out there defending himself. Brennan, by the way, is a communist. He voted in the 1950s for the communists. He's been a communist all of his life. He's anti-American. He wants globalism. And it's one of the most evil influences we've had as director of the CIA. He and Clapper lied, and they created this whole Russian collusion myth. If you read my book, Coup d'etat, which I'll show you in a minute, I cover this extensively. Okay, let's hear what Brennan has to say. Chris, you want to play that?
As you point out, Marco Rubio, who, he's a different person now, quite frankly. I think when he was in the Intelligence Committee, I think he really tried to carry out national security responsibilities in a very appropriate manner and tried to not just, bring politics into it. Again, I think that SSCI report, the Mueller investigation, the Durham investigation and review, all of this, I think, again, validates what happened in terms of Russian interference, the conclusions of that assessment, that Russia tried to interfere to enhance Donald Trump's prospects in that election, to damage Hillary Clinton, and to undermine the integrity of our election process. Those have really stood up and have been validated and supported by subsequent reviews, very thorough reviews.
Let's stop it right there. Stop right there. That's complete BS. Okay, that's total nonsense. He can say it all. He can say it until he turns blue in the face. It's a lie. Okay, and he knows it's a lie. That whole investigation, that assessment he's talking about of the intelligence agencies saying that the Russians stole the Democratic Party emails in 2016 is based on a crowdsourced estimate of analyzing the computers of the Democratic National Committee and saying it had to be Russia. Now, first of all, CrowdStrike never released the DNC computers to the Department of Justice. They've never been independently evaluated. I cover this extensively in Coup d'etat. Secondly, crowdsourced was a Democratic organization from the beginning. And Hillary knew going to whitewash any conclusion she wanted whitewashed. And Hillary Clinton made up the Russian collusion to cover up when her own emails were being released by WikiLeaks from her private email server. So she had to have another story. So the Democratic Party emails were stolen. They blamed them on Russia. They tried to take the emphasis off of Hillary's crimes using her email server to benefit the Clinton Foundation, which Bill Clinton was running. So they would get an oligarch like Pinochet in Ukraine who wanted some deal done. The State Department would grant his deal from Hillary. She'd send emails over to Bill. Bill Clinton, the foundation, would invite Pinochet to come to the Clinton Global Initiative annual meeting and donate billions of dollars, which he may or may not have ever paid, get a big stage presence. And for whatever money he paid to the Clinton Foundation, read my book, Partners in Crime, that did not go into any particularly charitable purpose. It went directly into the pockets of the Clintons, where 80-90% of those funds never got to the purpose they were intended to. Clinton stole billions from Haiti, who was destroyed by an earthquake. Same in India. They sold defective HIV drugs in Africa that wouldn't cure anybody and claimed they were doing humanitarian good. Okay, so Brennan here is a lying son of a bitch. I'm sorry, lying SOB. And he's been lying through his teeth in order to advance the destruction of the country. And his aim to destroy Donald Trump in 2016. I mean, I know it firsthand. I experienced the Mueller investigation. They thought I had the tie to Assange that would establish the Russian collusion tie to Roger Stone. And then I told Roger Stone Assange had Podesta's emails, and he told Trump, and then Trump and Roger managed with Assange how the emails would be dropped to best affect Trump in 2016 and hurt Hillary. It's all complete nonsense. I had no tie at all to Assange. And when the federal government couldn't find any tie, they threatened that, okay, they're just going to charge me with lying and say they'll put me in front of a jury in Washington, D.C. They'll put me in prison the rest of my life. Or I could take a plea deal and say I'd lied, trying to protect Donald Trump, and here was my source. I had one. Well, I didn't. So I refused to take their plea deal. Told them I could not swear before God or a judge to a lie in order to stay out of prison. So they might as well just get ready to put me in prison the rest of my life because I'm going. That's what's involved. They didn't indict me. They closed down the investigation. Now, Brennan is lying through his teeth. And he's going to continue lying like this because he can have his bookshelf behind him and his sport coat and his gray hair, and he's former head of the CIA, and he's pledging, well, we had all these intelligence assessments. All of them rigged, Brennan, and we've got the documentary evidence to prove it. In my book, and if you'll show the cover, Chris, of Coup d'etat, I write chapters and chapters about how he was organizing against Donald Trump long before the Democrats stole any emails stolen from them. And they were stolen by Mark Rich and Pam Bondi. Why don't you release Rich's emails and his laptops, which were seized by the federal government under Obama and not released? Okay, it's the same as the CrowdStrike. We don't have the DNC computers unanalyzed. Okay, so if you went to, there's coup d'etat. And what I said was that the attempt the actual removal of Donald Trump from office in 2020 was a staged coup d'etat, where there was intelligence agencies working with the Obama administration at a very high level to stage this Russian collusion lie to cover up Hillary's role in all the crimes she committed. And the emails released ultimately by Assange against Hillary, which showed what I knew they would show, and told Roger Stone in advance they would show, not because I was tipped off by any tie to Assange. It's just simple to figure it out. Same way you can figure out what's behind, the suppression of the material on Epstein. Again, I'm going to prove to be right, but it isn't because I've got definitive proof of it of any kind. It's just putting together the pieces, connecting the dots. Well, when you do that here with coup d'etat, you've got the same thing. And you got the reality is it was the Obama people who decided first they were going to try Russian collusion. When that failed, they impeached Trump on Ukraine. That failed. Okay, then they have the idea they're going to use the 35th Amendment to remove Trump by having Mike Pence say that he was unfit and needed to be removed from office. I wrote a memo on that and exposed that and had it hand delivered to Donald Trump when he was in the White House. Said, this is what they're doing. You better get the support of your cabinet because to block any attempt by Pence to remove you in the 35th Amendment. Well, Trump took that advice. But then we had Antifa on the streets. We had George Floyd. We had Portland, Oregon being destroyed by Antifa. We had Black Lives Matters destroying the cities and painting the street across from the White House with Black Lives Matter in yellow, and naming the street Black Lives Matter Boulevard, and starting to burn down St. John's Episcopal Church, this beautiful church across from the White House. Trump goes out with a Bible, and they turn the news cycle against Trump, saying he's inciting a riot. Okay, so the whole nature of the news cycle, the CIA, the mainstream media is against Trump. Donald Trump's just got to stop listening to these people who say, I'm here to help you, when in fact, all they want to do is undermine him. Donald Trump's had some very successful Supreme Court decisions lately. Supreme Court has said he can remove federal employees. We'll start removing them by the bushelfold. We've maybe only fired 10% of the federal workforce. Fire 90%. Fire by agency. Close down these agencies. You're president of the United States. You've got the authority to do it. These legacy employees are going to do nothing but sit there working for themselves, collecting their paychecks, working from home, and not coming under directives of the Trump appointees, because they're going to say, you guys are going to be out of here in a few years. The clock is counting, and I'll still have my job. And when I do, we'll go right back to global warming and all the other nonsense to destroy the country and advance the depopulist agenda. We're at a critical moment in human history, and it's going to take courage to fight these battles. But I'm sorry, if the King of England has to take a fall, so be it. If that's truth, let it fall where it may. And same with Kellogg. If he wants to warmonger, let him go to hell too. You let him retire. And I'm sure we can get a list of other generals that ought to retire along with him. And Hegseth ought to be doing that job as well. Now, finally, I want to emphasize that we're going to continue to advance and develop not only Act Blue, but this port in Chile, the Copia Port E. And my good friend Todd Callender, who owns an insurance company, the insurance company has an asset, the rights to develop this port. It's the only deep water port on the Pacific Ocean in South America. And China has a memorandum of understanding to buy it. Now, I've begun working with the group who were involved with a bill in Congress to do. There's Copia Port E. It's the Rotterdam of the Pacific. It has ties across into Argentina through these two low gradient passes in the Andes. There's going to be a bioceanic corridor developed from Brazil, Paraguay into Chile. If China gets this asset, the next 25 years, it'll have a hold on South America that we'll never recover from. China already operates the Panama Canal, and Donald Trump has not succeeded in wresting that control from China. China has a Southern Hemisphere trading monopoly that we've got to break. So I've got a contract to work with Todd. I'm going to disclose that fully, but I'm going to work to do that with this new infrastructure bank initiative, making sure it gets passed and showing everyone how we can develop this port with private capital, provided we have government guarantees. And by the way, it's the same solution in Gaza. And Donald Trump he's being induced to send a humanitarian aid into Gaza. If Netanyahu slowed down, we've got to get the job done there and got to get the job done in Iran. And Iran is now breathing again, thinking that, okay, we've survived the attack, and now we're going to, Ayatollah Khamenei is saying, well, okay, we're still going to develop our nuclear program. So it's time for Donald Trump to put the pressure on Iran. We've got them down. There's not time to let them up. And the Ayatollah Khamenei, I believe, was spared from assassination because he was being spared to sign a peace agreement, which hopefully would have a strong impact on, the whole idea of getting a positive resolve in these situations. If I'm going to sum up here, is simply for Donald Trump to continue taking the hard line and say, okay, Khamenei, if you're not going to sign a peace agreement, then internally, we're not going to go over there and do regime change. We're not going to occupy the country. But with economic squeeze, the people of Iran will take care of the situation. The Khamenei's on a thread right now because with the decimation of the Red Guard leadership by assassination during this war. Those who were there actually had China send 2 airplanes during the war into Iran to remove the 2 nuclear warheads that Iran had and the highly enriched uranium and take them back to China. So when Khamenei declared this is going to be the day the world changes, he didn't have the nuclear weapons to do it. Okay, now we've covered a lot of ground today. And we've said some things that are going to, I believe, hopefully shake things up at a very high level. And I'm intending to say that we're at a critical point right now. At this point right now, I've paid a price. And what I think we need to do is make sure we move toward peace through prosperity and have these situations resolved So we cut off Zelensky, he'll stop the war, so that we do not continue to fund Gaza. We don't let the Palestinian Authority participate in the negotiations over Gaza. Instead, we reach out to countries like Libya and we expand the Abraham Accords. It's Dr. Jerome Corsi. Today is Thursday, it's July 10th, 2025, CorsiNation.com. In the end, God always wins. And God's going to win here too, because the truth prevails. And there are many passages in the Bible which say clearly that truth will not remain perpetually hidden. Truth will always out. And so therefore it is the only thing that will set us free. And despite the risks of telling the truth, despite the horror of recognizing how evil some of these situations are, the truth must be revealed. In the end, God always wins, and he will win here too. But as we enter this battle, let's enter on our knees in the spirit of 2 Chronicles 7:14, getting on our knees, asking God to forgive us for letting our country and the world get to this point of evil, where pedophilia, sex crimes, evil intelligence agencies, lying media dominate. This era is coming to a crashing end, and with the help of God, God will intervene, and our land will be healed. Thank you for joining us today on CorsiNation.com. It's Thursday, July 10th, 2025. We'll be back tomorrow. God bless.